Angola's state airline, TAAG, will purchase Boeing 787-10 aircraft and spare General Electric engines through a $297 million financing deal approved by the U.S. Export-Import Bank. The transaction will support around 1,400 U.S. supply chain jobs linked to Boeing and GE Aerospace. The acquisition is part of Angola's broader strategy to transform the new $3 billion Dr. Antonio Agostinho Neto International Airport in Luanda into a key regional and global aviation hub. According to Transport Minister, the airport will serve as a central node in logistics network integrating Angola's seaport, railway and air routes. Behramjee Ghadially, aviation consultant, joins me now for the conversation. A pleasure to have you in.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. Are there any strategic advantages from this deal, from Angola's hopes to gain, what do they stand to gain by acquiring Boeing's 787-10 aircraft?
Yes, firstly, this aircraft in the future would be the long-term replacement for its Boeing 777-300 ER fleet. And this aircraft, as a result of the modern technology and fuel emissions that it has, it saves 23% per hour on fuel. The 787-10 consumes about 5.8 tons of fuel per hour, whereas the 777-300 ER aircraft, which it tends to replace in the long term, consumes about 7.5 tons of fuel per hour. So that automatically is a 23% savings on fuel costs alone. The disadvantage of the 787-10 though is that it cannot fly ultra long flights. So it can do Europe and the Middle East and South America non-stop from Angola. However, it cannot fly to Asia and North America non-stop. So that's one of the disadvantages. But the main advantage is its operating costs than the 777-300 it tends to replace. Most likely, this aircraft, which will end up becoming the biggest plane for TAAG Angola, will be used on its most popular route to Lisbon, as that is the biggest market from Angola, seeing about 400,000 passengers per year.
All right. So I mean, it's interesting there. Do you think that the $297 million financing from the U.S. Export-Import Bank, do you think is an indication of warm relations between Angola and U.S. trade, perhaps?
Yes, TAAG Angola in particular, as well as the government, have always had historically good relations with the U.S. government. TAAG has always been a Boeing airline, though in the last 2 years, they've managed to switch their narrow-body fleet to Airbus aircraft, but that won't jeopardize the relationship that TAAG has with Boeing. Right now, TAAG has ordered only 4 787s, whereas they have 8 wide-body aircraft to replace in the future. So I do expect definitely that TAAG will order much more Boeing 787s, but it'll be a mixture of both -9s and -10s. The reason why I'm saying the -9 is because the -9 allows TAAG to fly ultra long-haul flights non-stop. So if they in the future want to fly to Beijing or to Houston, the -9 aircraft will be the only possible one available for those missions.
And obviously this deal indicates some sort of positive relations between the U.S. and Angola. Will the U.S. financing model perhaps set a precedent for other African infrastructure and aviation deals?
Well, if you order Boeing aircraft directly, the EXIM Bank always helps you out, no matter what the situation is. And TAAG realizes that, and they've gotten some very good financing terms from EXIM Bank. The US also does use this as a policy to get more influence in Africa. So yes, I do see EXIM Bank penetrating more business for Boeing into Africa, especially with Ethiopia and Kenya.
So I mean, basically America does see, or US does see some interest in this deal. And can the new Dr. Antonio Agostinho Neto International Airport perhaps realistically become a regional aviation hub? Do you see that happening?
The potential is there because the geographical location of Luanda in Central Africa is quite decent. It is very good if you're connecting from Europe to the Southern African states, because geographically it's on the way to South Africa, Botswana, etc. So right now already the TAAG Angola flights from Lisbon do connect via Luanda in both directions to many Southern African points. So as long as they grow the network, both northbound and eastbound, the positioning of Luanda Airport geographically is quite good for that to happen.
And you have spoken on the Luanda Airport. If you can we can just stay on that a bit more. What would you say are the economic benefits? Yes. What economic benefits does Angola expect from perhaps positioning Luanda as an intercontinental air logistics center?
Well, number one, Angola recently announced they're giving visa on arrival to about 60 countries across the world. Some are in Africa, but many are in Europe and other places further away. That should have definitely increased point-to-point demand into Angola and boost tourism. As you know now, on CNN, Angola the Ministry of Tourism in Angola heavily advertises Angola as a safari and beach destination. So they expect some return on their investment on that. However, the problem with visiting Angola is that hotels are very, very expensive and still unaffordable to majority of travelers who go there. The travelers who do go to Angola still are mainly businessmen who can afford paying $300 to $400 a night, and that too for only a 3 or 4 star hotel. So Angola needs to build some budget-friendly accommodation to spur tourism onwards. Otherwise, it won't reap the benefits that it hopes to engage.
So, I mean, a lot more investment that we need to see there. We'll pick up this conversation and tie things together in just a minute. Stay with us. You're still watching Business Edge. TAAG secures $297 million from EXIM bank deal for Boeing 787s, and I mean, we're looking at the commercial viability of this move. And you know, we have had Behramjee Ghadially joining us briefly, giving us the highlights from this conversation. And obviously, there's still a lot more that needs to be done to boost local tourism. That was where we left off the conversation. But looking at all else and Angola's $3 billion airport project, you know, is it financially sustainable given the country's broader economic context?
Yes, definitely. Whenever projects like a new airport is built, no one expects short-term returns. It's a long-term project aimed at the long-term development of the country. So these type of projects usually take 20 years to see decent returns. So it's a long-term project, and we won't see any short-term gains that so fast. However, I would like to state one more thing regarding the 787-10s that TAAG Angola bought. They were bought new from Boeing. However, they were bought as aircraft which were originally destined for Vietnam Airlines. These planes were not taken up by Vietnam Airlines, and Boeing offered quite an attractive deal to TAAG Angola, as well as some other airlines who were willing to snap up the plane. But TAAG Angola obviously won that bid. So the aircraft is right now configured with 24 business and 343 economy class seats. That's 367 in total. The problem with that is it has too few business class seats for Angola's market profile. As you know, with Angola being an oil dependent country and a lot of high net worth individuals were working and living there, this aircraft, the capacity that it has, unless they reconfigure the airplane, it reduces their business class capacity by more than half, which will hurt their yields and their revenue. So they need to look at reconfiguring the airplane to install more business class seats to realize the true benefit of this aircraft.
And I guess, I mean, that would take on some extra costs, but we'll see whether or not that is... Yeah, that is done, and hopefully it's commercially rewarding. But looking finally, as we tie things together, how critical would you say is the integration of ports, railways, and air corridors to the success of this wider logistics plan?
Well, you just have to look at how Kenya in particular has managed to position itself as a gateway to Africa from Asia. They have the Mombasa port as well as some other ports in Eastern Africa that's helped to integrate itself with the railway transportation in that country. So TAAG, with its seaport in Central Africa on the west coast, that will definitely help as long as the rail network is modernized and connected with the port. Right now, Senegal is trying to do that, but that's still some years away.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the race is on, and hopefully we see that rising competition amongst other African players. But thank you so much for your time. Behramjee Ghadially, aviation consultant.
Thank you.
A pleasure having you in.